The government's special rapporteur now has an official mandate and deadline. Former Governor General David Johnston will have 2 months to determine whether there should be a national public inquiry into allegations of foreign elections interference, and another 5 months beyond that to assess the extent and impact of foreign interference in Canada's electoral processes. That's what the press release says. Oh, and while that was being announced, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff agreed to testify on the issue in front of a parliamentary committee after Liberals on that committee spent days trying to stop that from happening. Let's unpack all of this with the front bench here tonight. Former New Brunswick Liberal Premier Brian Gallant, he's the CEO of Space Canada. Former Conservative Deputy Leader Lisa Raitt, she's the Vice Chair and Managing Director of Global Investment Banking at CIBC. CTV News political analyst and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair, and the Toronto Star's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Rob Benzie. Hi, everybody. Great to see you tonight.
Hi,
Brian, I'm going to start with you. We've been talking for weeks now about kind of the government's approach to this. Do you think that the stuff announced today, the timeline, an actual timeline for when Mr. Johnston will have to finish his work, and the fact that we'll know in 2 months whether there should be a public inquiry, do you think these are good moves, basically, by the government?
Yeah, they're good moves. I think they're on the back of a few weeks, however, of not necessarily handling this the best way possible, as we've mentioned on this panel week after week, that there could have been things that were done a little quicker that probably could have mitigated some of the backlash that the Trudeau government has felt on this issue. I think the idea of putting out a date, though, is always helpful. It makes it more real. It makes it a little crisper. It's clear that there's sort of an end to this and you're not trying to sort of waste time and tread water. The other aspect of this, obviously, for today's announcement is the May deadline. So as you mentioned, Vassy, there's sort of two parts to the deadlines. One is the ultimate review, the ultimate rapporteur's report that would be in October of this year. And then in May, a determination, essentially 2 months almost to the day, a determination if an inquiry should be called or not. Obviously, that part is very clearly based on the backlash, based on the outcry from opposition. The idea that they're hopeful, I'm sure, that there's either way going to be is going to be resolved, whether it be that there's going to have an inquiry or not. As I mentioned last week, it's interesting because maybe they want one. Maybe they're sort of like, let's just get this done with and let's get it announced because maybe there's no way for us to move on without having one. Or perhaps they have their fingers crossed thinking that Mr. Johnston's reputation and integrity will be enough if he comes out and says no inquiry is necessary. Then that way they can sort of move on and wait for the report that would ultimately come in October. So today's an okay day, given a few weeks of unfortunate circumstances and probably reactions by the Trudeau government.
I definitely feel like the latter scenario that Brian paints there, Lisa, I just can't picture it happening. I sort of try to envision the idea that Mr. Johnston comes back and says, you know what, there's no need for further investigation, and then the Liberals just kind of move on. I feel like politically it would be really hard to sell that.
Aha, and that's where the information on what the date is very important, because as Tom will know, what happens in May is a whole bunch of real confidence votes come to the fore with respect to budget implementation acts, with respect to making sure that you can pay people. These are really important votes that happen according to the calendar in May. So here we have this decision coming forward in May, a convenient time for any government in terms of whether or not they're trying to get through these votes and making sure that they have the support of the NDP prior to any response coming back from Mr. Johnston, or they have the opportunity to say, look, we clearly don't have confidence of the House. Here's a great opportunity for us to go to an election, kind of keeping it alive. So for me, the most interesting part was picking a date in May as the date by which all of this information is suddenly going to be made available.
Tom, what do you think about that?
Well, since we're having a little bit of fun with dates, let's look at the other one, which is the October date, because we've had a chance to talk about this before also. There's a new electoral map coming in. And Mr. Trudeau, once that map comes in, and it's imminent, they have 7 months to hold the election under the old map, which is definitely more favorable to the Liberals than the new one will be, because the new one has, for example, a bunch of new seats in Alberta. Those are going to be going to the Conservatives in all likelihood. So that is part of the calculation, because this two-step with David Johnston is a little bit mysterious. In May, he's going to say whether or not there's going to be a public inquiry, but then he gets to handle the file for months and months after that, which of course leaves wide open the likely date of October, because Mr. Trudeau would be able to announce the election just before what would normally have been the return of the House in September. he gets to have his election. Then not one single witness will have been heard before any commission of inquiry. So even if David Johnston calls for it, given the fact that he's been given months and months to keep stick handling the puck, nothing will really come of it. So I think the Canadians who are worried about our democracy will not be very satisfied with what they heard today. Mr. Trudeau and his team, I think, have been quite clever, but sometimes you can be too clever by half. And I think the average Canadian is going to say, hold on, when are we going to actually find out what happened with Chinese government interference in Canadian elections? And by the way, it's not just federal. We know that there are serious allegations concerning provincial and serious hard evidence concerning, for example, municipal, the Vancouver mayoralty election in particular. So Canadians are going to be left with a lot of questions, but I think that Trudeau and his team might have managed to survive.
To be fair, also, I mean, it's not as though, Rob, Mr. Johnston can fulfill the second part of his mandate, which is basically figure out the scope of everything we've heard and if it's real in a very short amount of time. I take the points around timing of it and all the politics of that. But it's not, I don't think it's the easiest thing to make that determination. I could be wrong. I do understand why a bit of time is needed on that back end. At the same time, I don't really understand how he's going to say if there's an inquiry and then continue his own inquiry after that.
Yeah, exactly, Vassy. And to your point earlier, we know that if there is no inquiry called by Victoria Day when Mr. Johnston issues his report, then that won't satisfy anybody. Critics in the press, the opposition parties. So I don't understand why Mr. Trudeau doesn't pull the Band-Aid off. Call the inquiry. Frankly, I actually don't think the inquiry will be that bad for the government. If we learned anything from the Rouleau inquiry, CSIS is not particularly good at its job. If CSIS couldn't detect a domestic English-speaking insurgency that seized the capital city for 3.5 weeks, are we really sure that their research and their spying on the Chinese around 2019 and 2021 elections is going to be that great? I mean, I'm sorry that I don't want me to slag our entire intelligence community, but they didn't do a great job on the convoy protests. So how do we know they've done a great job on spying on China?